Welcome to Pod Band Pipecast, the premier pipe band podcast.
Hey,
That was good.
That was very good, yeah.
Look at that. Welcome to the show, everyone. We have today Rod Bain. Interestingly enough, we are interviewing Rod, not to be confused with Todd, who we interviewed last week, and the week before that, too. So this is Rod with an
Todd,
R.
who used to be confused with me.
Yes.
You're talking about Todd Norris.
Yes. Yes. So Rod, not to be confused with Todd, not to be confused with Chuck Norris.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
There's a whole lore here going if you haven't watched the other episodes.
I noticed.
So
but unlike
Rod,
Chuck Norris, when I do push-ups, I'm not pushing the earth away.
So thank you again for being on the show, Rod. This is going to be a lot
Thank you
of
for
fun.
having me.
Yeah. Rod has been around in pipe bands in the Western United States, and you might know him, and you might not, but you probably do because he's been everywhere. I feel like. Every time we go to games, it's like people you walk around and people are like, "It's Rod!" Like. So Rod is going to talk today with us about his career and his currently he's the bass drummer for the grade 3 Phoenix pipe band in town. And he's going to talk about bass drumming and why he likes it. And yeah, he's repping his brand today.
Product placement.
Product placement. By the way, if you're listening to this and you want to see Rod's Phoenix Pipe Band shirt and all of the books behind him that he's read, we do have video of this episode and all of our episodes available at patreon.com/podbandpipecast for a mere low price of $5
Plus tax.
per month. And you can see all of our episodes there, and you can see all the books, and you're going to be very impressed.
Yes.
So let's get to it.
Dive right in. So, how did you get started with Scottish drumming?
I actually started trying to be a piper.
What?
When I was 14, I had been going to Highland games and stuff with my mom, and I was interested in learning the pipes, but I was interested in learning the pipes in a teenager, impatient way. I wanted to be able to play it right now, and I couldn't. And so, surprise. And so I ended up kind of giving it up over time. But then years and years later, I guess I was 26 or 27, and I was at a Highland Games with some friends, and I saw the bands go by, and I saw the drummers pass by me, and I was like, now that looks like fun. And so I went and found my old pipe teacher and said, hey, how could I learn to play snare drum? And he was like, oh, easy. Here, let me give you a name. And he gave me the drum sergeant's name, and I started taking lessons. And by the way, my first teacher was not that guy. He hooked me up with a teacher in his band whose name was Connie. And her first instruction to me was, don't hit like a girl. That's right. You just heard me say her first instruction to me, don't hit like a girl. Anyway, that was in Atlanta. That was where I grew up. And that was the Atlanta Pipe Band. I didn't actually end up playing for them because I got accepted to graduate school in Philadelphia. And I had to put it down for a little while because of school, the drumming, but then picked it up again when school kind of eased up as I was getting close to graduation. And I started taking lessons again and got with a grade 5 band called the Pipes and Drums of the Delaware Valley, who I think are no longer together. They moved up to grade 4 right after I was there, and then they moved back down. And I think they've dissolved now. But then I got a job in California. And that's what brought me to the Western Pipe Band Association, U.S. Pipe Band Association, WUSPA. And that's when I started hanging out with you guys. So I came out in 2001, I think, was when I first played. My first band was Misty Isle, which, again, no longer around. So I'm sensing a theme here. If you want your band to survive, don't have me in your band, apparently.
That's why we had to kick you out, right? No.
That's right. But so I played in Misty Isle for 6 years. And then I went to Blandford when Misty Isle folded, played for them for a couple of years. And then my family decided to move to Arizona. And I considered being an out-of-town player, but wasn't comfortable with it at the time. And then I met some of you guys from Mesa and came and played at Mesa for 6 years. And then I had an opportunity to play at the grade 2 level with Eli Fugate, whom some of you listening may know. He's now playing with St. Lawrence O'Toole. And went there and played in grade 2 for 5 years, and then realized, because I was still living in Phoenix, that the travel thing really does kind of suck. And so I decided to look for a local band again. And it turned out that a perfect situation existed at Phoenix, because the bass drummer for the Phoenix grade 3 wanted to focus more on snare, and I needed a place to go, and was like, oh, this is awesome. Then he ended up leaving the band after a while, and that was a personality conflict, I think. Not with me, but anyway, yeah, I felt a little bad, because I'm like, wow, if I hadn't come, would he have left? I don't know. I realized in the first part of this podcast, I'm sounding like kind of a destructo. 2 of my bands folded, one guy left after I joined. I'm not that guy, really. I'm not.
No, you're just
and that's where I've been ever since.
Yeah, you're just finding your home in different places. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I try not to be a kilt swapper.
So you mentioned snare drumming, and now you're a bass drummer.
Right.
For our listeners who don't know, why did you choose bass drumming instead of snare drumming? Because you still play snare occasionally, right? Or you can?
Yeah, occasionally. Yeah. Snare, I really have to work at snare. It requires me to really focus, and it just doesn't come naturally to me. Bass drumming comes naturally to me. I can listen to a tune, listen to a snare score, and know what to do. With playing snare, I really need somebody to talk me through it, and I need the music in front of me. And yeah, it's not as easy. I don't mean that in an I want to take the easy way out kind of way. I mean, in service to a band, I'm more useful as a bass drummer because it just comes to me. And whereas, like I say, snare is harder. Well, you remember when I first joined Mesa, I tried to join the grade 3 snare line. It wasn't happening. I've actually never played in a grade 3 snare line. I've played in grade 4 and grade 5, but never grade 3. Whereas I've played, in grade 2 playing bass, and we actually even played up into grade 1 once, and won drumming that day, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah. So you're no less a leading light than your own drum major said, hey, how did it feel to be a grade 1 drummer? I'm like, well, I'm not a grade 1 drummer. We just play it up. He's like, you just won a grade 1 contest in drumming. You're a grade 1 drummer. I'm like, wow, I hadn't thought about it that way. Anyway, so that's why it was a better way to serve the band I was playing in. And also to me, it's more fun, because when you can come at something that you really just get, then you can really have fun with it and play with it more. As a snare drummer, I can't be that creative. I really have to focus on what needs to be done. Plus, as a snare drummer, you're a member of a corps, and so being creative means being out of sync. Whereas when you're the only bass drummer, you can do what you want.
There's no creative liberties with trying to match the lead tip. It's just you match or you don't.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. The only person I have to match as the bass drummer is the ensemble. I have to match what the pipers and the snares are trying to do together. And there's more than one way to do that. And so that means you have a little bit of liberty as far as what you can play.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. I think it's interesting, because we even asked Kevin, who also plays all manner of pipe band percussion, and we said, if you had the choice to play, like if we had a show and we said you could play whatever you want, what do you want to do? And he even plays pipes, and he's obviously also a drum major, and he said, I would be a bass drummer. And I'm like, oh, most people probably don't think about that. Like, it's just fun.
To my mind, it's the most fun instrument to play in the circle. I love it. And it's also the best seat in the house because everybody's pointed at you. So, I even get a better sound than the people sitting in the stands.
You
Of
also,
course, that's also why I have to wear these headphones because otherwise I won't hear you.
yeah. I was going to say, you also notice any of the mistakes or anything that come across too. It's like, oh, this side of the band was, whatever, off tempo or anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And pipers and drummers really appreciate when I do that. Let me tell you. Somebody over here has got a trailing drone. Shut up, dude.
Don't be a narc.
Yeah, exactly. One fun thing I didn't mention is for a brief time, for like a week in there, I technically played for a band called the New York Pipes and Drums. It was when Misty Isle got asked to play for the St. Patrick's Day week for New York's new, at that time, new Nine Fine Irishmen pub. And so we were there for a week, playing in the pub, playing around the hotel, playing in the piano bar. And we even changed the heads. Like the heads of my bass drum said, New York, Pipes and Drums.
That's cool. So that, just to clarify for people that may not know, that's the Las Vegas casino.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah,
okay.
The casino. Yeah, on the Strip.
Yeah, it's not New York City, New York.
Correct. Correct. Although I have played in New York, not New York City, but in New York when I was playing in the band back east.
Nice.
Yeah, but that was a really long time ago. That was the 2000 season.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then New York is another band that disbanded because of you, right?
You see the trend.
Technically.
Actually, that probably is still available for any band that wants to go there and play because I'm sure they still have the heads. In fact, we were not the first ones to be the New York Pipe Band. The year before, a certain well-known California grade 1 band, whose name I won't mention, actually played for the groundbreaking of that pub at the St. Patrick's Day the year before. And they chose to have us come because they were hoping our bar tab might be smaller.
So they offered you just come in and have some free drinks on us after the show. And
we got drink tickets. We got free food in their cafeteria, which was really good, by the way, because unbeknownst to me, apparently it's a problem in Vegas for workers to leave their work to go to lunch and end up spending too long because there are so many things designed to keep you in places there, right? No clocks, all the noise. And so people routinely take too late lunches. And so New York and whatever other casinos are aligned with them said, you know what, let's just have a really, really good cafeteria. And then people will stay here and eat lunch and then they'll get right back to work. Mm-hmm. And
smart.
If I worked there, I'd eat there all the time. But this isn't a casino podcast, so we'll get back to the topic. Sorry.
No, that's good. It's interesting.
Yeah.
You get on all kinds of adventures when you're in pipe band.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate in that regard. I count myself very lucky. The bands I've been in have gotten to do a lot of cool things.
Yeah. I know we've had our fair share of adventures too. We might have to do an episode just on pipe band adventures one time.
That would be fun.
Because everyone's got stories, weird places you end up.
You might even be able to do a retrospective of podcasts you've already done, because I'm sure Ed had some stories.
Yes. At best, if you're listening, we know you have stories. I know there's a story in Mesa, there's a story of one time the band tapped beer as a fundraiser at a Harley Davidson festival. I hear about that all the time. Why did you play? No, we didn't play. We just tapped beer. What?
Why?
It wasn't a gig. It was just a fundraiser.
Just something you got to do, huh?
I guess.
Wow. I didn't get to do that one.
I know. I missed out on that one, obviously.
That was either before or after my time.
Yeah. But anyway, yes. Let's keep going.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you wanted to stop being a remote drummer because it just got to be a lot. What are some challenges you faced during that, and how did you overcome those challenges?
The biggest challenge to being a remote drummer is the lack of regular practice with the band. You can practice all you want. You practice your hands off at home. But especially as a bass drummer, not having the band there, not being able to play to ensemble and get those breaks right and stuff like that, it's very difficult. The only way I was able to make that work as long as I did with Prince Charles is because Prince Charles had a core of pipers and drummers that were of a caliber where a lot of them didn't even need to be at practice every time. And, that's not necessarily a good way to go, but at the same time, if you have that caliber of player, then you can make it work. And it worked for 5 years, but there were times where there was tension, like, oh, you can't make practice this month. Okay, because we got games next month, and it just because life gets in the way. But if you have practice every week, then life doesn't get in the way that badly, right? Mm-hmm. And so those kind of problems are amplified when you're in a travel situation. It can be a lot of fun because you get to go explore another city and see other things, and that's really cool. I happen to also like traveling, but it's hard for practicing. It's hard on family life. It's expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. How often would you go over for practice? Was it once a month or a couple times a month, or?
I'd try to go every couple of weeks. Yeah, but at least once a month.
And that, I'm sure, can get tough if you hope the band has practice on a weekend, because otherwise you're like, I can't get there on a Wednesday and
right.
go to work on Thursday.
Fortunately, Prince Charles did have their practices on weekends. They had a Wednesday or Thursday practice, but that was for their grade 5. And their grade 5 people obviously needed to be in-town players, because you can't have out-of-town players for a grade 5. That just doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. Because kind of the way things are going with COVID, I'm noticing, because a lot of bands are doing the Zoom thing, and you start to think, well, like, could this work long term? Could this be like could remote bands be like a real thing going forward? You just all come together.
Again, if you have a certain caliber of player, that might work. So that might work in grade 1 or maybe even grade 2. But in the bottom 3 grades, I don't think you're going to see that happen very much.
Yeah.
Not intended to be a product placement, by the way. I was just thirsty.
Is that Mountain Dew, by the way?
Oh man,
it's Mountain Dew Zero, actually.
Oh, I don't think we tasted that.
Trying to watch my girlish figure.
It's funny because we did a few kind of ridiculous episodes, but fun episodes on where we talked about potential changes that we would make to pipe bands, just fantasy changes, while ranking Mountain Dew flavors. So
interesting.
Which Mountain Dew is actually apparently tied to Scotland, because
something about mountains.
Something about it's named after Mountain Dew was like the name of Scotch, I guess.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't know that, but our beverage expert, Alex, that we brought on, knew that. So if you want a better explanation, there was an episode.
Works for me.
See, this is good. I like this product placement.
This callback.
I'm thinking Baja Blast is probably not a big thing in Scotland.
We don't know. It could be.
Well, I don't think there's a Taco Bell in Scotland.
Is there not?
I know there's not one in Ireland, and I think when I went over there, the closest one was in like France.
Oh.
So
I can picture some ruddy dude pulling up to a drive-thru. Right, I like a Baja Blast, please. That's Baja Blast, thank you.
Scottish people who are listening, how do you live without Taco Bell? I guess they don't know what they're missing.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. That's just all. But anyway, getting off topic once again. It's fine.
Just a little bit.
just a little. It's fine. But now we get to the actual fun part of the episode, which is...
Oh, let's hear it.
What has been your most memorable experience, or a couple of experiences, with pipe band so far?
Okay. Well, as I told you, I've been very fortunate that bands I've been in have have done a lot of fun things and have gone a lot of cool places. Probably one of the most memorable experiences I've had was going to Lorient. And it's funny because I've heard bands complain about Lorient and say, oh, it's a lot of work and there's no competition and what's the point? It's not even Scotland. But dude, that was so much fun. It was probably the hardest I've worked in my life for that much fun, but it was incredibly fun. So you go there and you do 5 stadium shows, and I'm talking about in a proper European soccer stadium, with 15, 20,000 people watching you. And you do this 5 times, and it's on TV in France. And you do probably 10 parades.
Wow.
You do usually at least 5 or 6 shows in your country pavilion. So in our case, Scotland, which that year was the featured country. So for those that don't know what Lorient is, I'm sorry, I probably should have led with that. Lorient is a festival in France called the Interceltic Festival of Lorient. And it features all the Celtic nations and their music. So like Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Cornwall, Isle of Man, Galicia, Asturia, Brittany, which is where it's hosted, all these places. And so you get to hear all these different kinds of music. You get to eat all this different kind of food. It is an astounding event. It's really great. Anyway, so you get to play at your pavilion, which in our case was Scotland, of course, even though we were from San Francisco. And then you play a variety of other shows around. I mean, we must have performed no less than 30 or 35 times. Sometimes for half an hour or 45 minutes. And this is in the span of a little under 2 weeks. And so, it was like I say, the hardest I have ever worked to have that much fun, but oh man, it was fun. There's a picture of me from that, picture of several of us actually, where we were waiting to go on for a show of some kind. And I think it was at the pavilion actually. And I'm holding my bass drum kind of at an angle because there's a kid and his mom on the other side of this little fence. And I had given the kid one of my mallets. And you probably remember I do this at Highland Games all the time. I'll let little kids hit my drum, right? Mm-hmm. And so I did that, and I've got the drum up so he can reach it. And I've got a big smile on my face. And one of the tenor drummers standing next to me has a big smile on her face. The kid and his mom both have a big smile. And the mallet is just about this far from the drum. And it was like that picture summed up Lorient for me. It was like, it was so much fun, but I'm sitting there holding that drum up for a while. So there's the work, it was like, but I mean, they put you up in a dorm and they feed you 2 out of 3 meals a day if you want to eat it there. You get to see a lot of Brittany. It's incredibly fun. And to say that that's one of my most memorable moments says a lot, because I've been to the World Championships 4 times in Scotland. And so, and that's very memorable, obviously. But yeah, Lorient was incredible. I wouldn't have expected that I would say that in this show, but you sent me the questions beforehand, so I had time to think about it. And I was like, even of all the times I've been to Scotland, Lorient beat that pretty much, as far as fun. Now, as far as, the level of play and, learning more about the community that we play in and stuff like that, the Worlds is better for that. When you go to the Worlds, there's like 300 bands there. You get to see the whole sweep of the pipe band community around the world. Lorient is more about seeing the whole sweep of Celtic music and Celtic culture around the world, which, from a musician standpoint, may not be quite as stimulating, but from a personal standpoint was incredibly fun.
So when you were there and you said you performed like 30, 35 times.
It might have even been more than that.
What were you playing all those times? I mean, was it just Green Hills and Scotland the Brave 30 times? Because that doesn't...
So
I don't know.
The stadium shows were like a set group of tunes. I don't even remember what they are. Some of them were ones that you've heard, like Green Hills Battles O'er. Scotland the Brave, of course, we played Scotland the Brave, God knows how many times, because they're wanting you to remind everybody that you're from Scotland, right? So yeah, they played that a lot. But then it was also a stage show. So it was this big thing, the stage shows anyway, the ones in the stadium, where, the Scottish pipe bands would come out and play, and then the Irish pipe bands would come out and play, and then the Asturians would come out and play, and then the Galicians would come out and play, and there'd be this final thing where we would all be out there together playing something. And it's moving. I mean, it's incredible. And they've got a big video going on behind you, sort of the jumbotron with scenes from the different Celtic nations and all the flags and stuff like that. It was really cool. One funny thing about when the bands were all out there together was the Asturians were on one side of the field and the Galicians were on the other side, because they were on different sides of the Spanish Civil War. So they don't get along. So they don't put them together normally.
And do all these countries have pipe bands, or are they
of some form or other? Yeah.
That's cool to see.
That's one of the cool things too, is that the bands aren't exactly the same. Like a Breton bagad, like what they call a pipe band, is almost like an orchestra. It's bagpipes. It's these things called bombards that look kind of like a chanter on steroids, or like a clarinet and a chanter had a one night stand, but they're very shrill. And so they lend an almost snake charmer kind of sound to all the great Highland bagpipes that they're also playing, that just like the ones our bands play. And then they've got drummers playing snare drums like we do, and tenor drums like we do, and bass drums like we do, but they also have, a bunch of timpani and stuff like that lined up in the back, and they're playing that in the back. And sometimes they've got brass. It's incredible. Watching them march is fun, because those bands sometimes have 70, 80, 90 people, because they've got so many instruments. And it's pretty impressive. The Galicians play Asturians play a set of pipes they call gaitas, I think. And they look a little different. They sound slightly different, but the mechanics are the same. Chanter, blowpipe, bag, drones. I think they have 2 drones instead of 3, but I'm not sure. But yeah, so you get to see a lot of different kinds of bagpipes and different kinds of instrumentation and combinations of instrumentation.
That's really cool. Yeah. Similar
the Welsh did not bring any bagpipes. They brought a choir.
Oh.
Yeah. Bunch of old Welsh men sitting around in the area before the show. I can't do a Welsh accent, or I would try, but my Welsh accent is not on, so I'm not going to do it. But yeah, they'd be sitting around outside talking before they went on, and then they'd go sing, and that's all they had. They didn't have pipers, so it's like, okay, cool, we'll let you sing, go for it. There was a brass band from the Isle of Man, because I guess they don't have pipes there either. And then the Cornish had like singers and guitar players and stuff like that. They didn't really have a band set up like that. So, and they're one of the smaller nations anyway, so they did a more intimate kind of setting. But they'd usually be out there with everybody at the final part of the show. And of course, you could check out all these bands, like among all the pavilions. You could check out what they were doing, at their individual pavilions, like all day for the 2 weeks.
That's cool. Sounds like an experience.
Cool. Yeah.
So how did was the pipe band invited to that, or can you just sign up to go, or?
The band was invited. They had been once before in 2013, I think. And we went in 2017. I don't know how you get invited, but there were 3 Scottish bands there. It was us and a band called, I'm not going to remember, Isle of Cumbrae, I think. And then another one whose name I'm not going to remember. And that's terrible, because I have their tie in my closet because we swapped ties. That's awful. I'm a bad man for not remembering that, and I hope none of them see this podcast, but because they're going to be like, he doesn't remember us, that guy's a jackass. I remember them, I just don't remember the name of their band, that's all. Yeah, so there were 3 of us, And then I think there were 3 Irish pipe bands. So again, set up just like our pipe bands, but they happen to be from Ireland or Northern Ireland. Yeah, but you have to be invited.
Cool. That's interesting because it's like none of those bands are all Scottish pipe bands, but none of them are from Scotland. So it's like,
well, yeah, the other 2 were.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, our band was the only one from America. And then there were 2 from Scotland, and then all the Irish bands. I don't remember if they were from the Republic or from the North or a mix. I don't remember.
Okay.
But I know that Len Wood, who is a piper in our band, was there also playing with an Irish youth band that he helps out from time to time.
Well, actually, guess what? We are going to interview Len Wood also.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So
he is going to be an amazing interview. That guy has done so many different things. He's really awesome.
So, yeah, excellent promotion for one of our future episodes.
And he has a really nice voice too.
You both are like, sound like you could be radio hosts because.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, last question.
What are you most looking forward to about pipe band in the next couple of years?
Well, at the moment, I haven't really been thinking about what I'm looking forward to just because I want us to get back. So getting back really is number one, and actually being able to play in a circle with actual humans that I can actually see and, actually hear at the same time without a lag. But yeah, I mean, I just can't wait to get back to competing again. I missed that. I tried doing one of those online championships once, back in, I think it was in May or something like that. And it was a solo thing. And it was all right. It was pretty fun. It was what's the name of the website? God, I'm not going to remember, and he's going to be mad at me. It was Yori Chisholm's website. And he sponsors these things, and they do it every so often. They did one this spring, then they did another one this last fall. They'll probably do another one in the spring. They call it the World Online Pipe Band Championships, or Piping and Drumming Championships. Sorry, it wasn't a band. But again, it was disconnected. So I chose the tunes I wanted to play. I talked to Eli, who played snare for me. I talked to Alistair Martin, who played pipes for me, who plays for Dunedin and used to play with us in Mesa. And so I think Eli made a recording and sent it to Alistair, and then Alistair recorded to that and sent it to me. And so then I recorded to the 2 of them playing together, even though they weren't actually together. It was very strange. I really can't wait till people can be together.
Yeah. It's a good thing to look forward to. I mean, it's kind of what people have been saying when we ask them that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I just can't wait to do it again. It's like, most hobbies, you don't have to stop doing them when something like this happens. But with this one, because the bagpipes, unfortunately, are a giant one-man super spreader, it affects our hobby in a way that most people's hobbies are probably not affected. Most people probably do their hobbies more in a time like this, whereas we have to do it less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, cool. That's all we have for you right now, but stay tuned. We will be back with Rod next week to talk about more things about bass drumming and being a bass drummer and why it's the best instrument and why you should appreciate your bass drummer.
Yes, you should.
And yeah, it's going to be a fun time. So come back here next week and we're going to talk to Rod again.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed this show, then support us on Patreon for exclusive content as well as the video of us recording this. We'll have special exercises we'll be writing as well as tips and tricks with tenor drumming and other instruments to come. Subscribe to us on YouTube for some tenor tutorials and possibly other tutorials later on. And like us on Facebook at Podband Pipecast.